Hello friends, hello professionals, and welcome back to my channel, The Sea of Regulation. In this particular video, I'm going to be touching on the basics. For those of you that are not necessarily in the financial services industry, but are curious, or you might be thinking of transitioning. In this particular episode, I am going to explain who is a compliance officer and why do you need one. But before we get into that, let me get my usual disclaimers out of the way. I am a financial services regulator. I am not a lawyer, and I'm not a professional advisor. So the views on this channel are definitely my own and not the view of any regulatory authority or international standard setter. Now with that out of the way, let's dive in. So in my prior videos, quite a few videos actually, I've been looking at compliance issues and I've touched on certain things involving compliance officers, such as how they can be more effective, some of the characteristics that they should have. And if you're interested in that video, I'll definitely link it below. But taking a couple steps back, who is a compliance officer? Why do certain firms need compliance officers? Well, you see, in financial services and other sectors, you actually need someone to discharge of the compliance function. Now, ultimately, the person or persons responsible for that are the board of directors of a company or anyone responsible for the governance and oversight. Because I do recognize that different organizations may not be a traditional company, and so you can have a board, you can have a charter, you can have a number of different structures. But for the purpose of this video, just think of whomever is in charge and where the buck stops. As it relates to the compliance function, the buck stops with directors. So what directors are supposed to do is to make sure that they hire someone for their firm or their organization to carry out the compliance function in relation to that licensee. And what is the compliance function? Essentially to make sure that the firm is adhering, being compliant, to the relevant laws and regulations in that particular jurisdiction. Now, compliance just doesn't cover amlcft, as some people would like to think. Yes, I talk about that a lot, but there are other elements that need to be addressed. There are governance issues, so under law, there are responsibilities for a firm to make sure that there's proper oversight, management, and control, but they also have statutory or prudential, and that is the legal requirements that are not amlcft, so prudential requirements to be complied with. So for example, if you are supposed to have a minimum number of directors, say 3, in a particular jurisdiction, and that's in law, that's a prudential requirement. It also touches on a bit of governance. If you are supposed to file your audited financial statements at a certain time with certain documents, that is a prudential requirement. And the compliance officer sometimes is left out of prudential matters and only placed to address AML matters. And that is not how it's supposed to work. Some firms can appoint more than one person based on what a lot of jurisdictions will term the size, nature, and complexity. There's other language that is sometimes used, but generally that's the thrust of what you will see. Now, in appointing a compliance officer, you can't just pick up anybody off the road to say, hey, you willing to do some compliance for me? Also doesn't work like that. You see, a compliance officer is a regulated person in many jurisdictions. So that person's appointment requires regulatory approval. Those regulatory authorities I said I don't represent in these videos, they would have an approval provision, and they call them senior managers or key persons or approved persons. Whatever the name is, there's typically a requirement to have a prior approval of a compliance officer. And why is that? The person must be fit and proper. Again, more regulatory language, but we're going to get through this in the basics. A fit and proper person must make sure that they have certain attributes to be approved by their regulator. That person has to be of good moral character. So you will see something like integrity, honesty. They have to be prudent with their finances. We don't necessarily want someone who can't manage their money because it speaks to an issue of having certain deficiencies in managing other areas. And again, persons who may have certain financial issues might present as a different type of risk. No offense to anyone who might have caught themselves in this situation, but it's actually enshrined in law. And then one of the more important ones, that they have the skills, knowledge, and expertise. So again, you can't just pick up somebody off of the street. Someone needs to be trained. Someone needs to be properly qualified. They need to have the mental capacity to actually do this. Some people are not cut out for compliance officers. It's a very demanding job. And if it is that you are thinking about a role in compliance, I would not dissuade you. It's going to be one of the highest paid jobs out there in financial services very, very soon, because no amount of technology will replace them. There might be some things that are lessened, but you still need that person. It's a regulatory requirement in many jurisdictions, and I can only see the need for compliance resources that are trained, knowledgeable, skilled, proficient, well-versed in regulation, prudential matters, company law, dependent on what sector you're in. I see the demand for that only going up. So guys, if you can think of anything else in relation to a compliance officer that I may have missed, definitely drop it in the comments below. If you are interested in becoming a compliance officer, let me know. I'd be interested. There may be things I can help with. And I'll be back with another video, but make sure you like the video, helps with the YouTube algorithm. Make sure that you share with your friends and subscribe if you haven't. And if you haven't, come on, just give me that subscribe. And I'll definitely see you in my next video.